Okay, welcome to Happy Hour Live with Uncle Nearest. I'm Sailor, and I'm here with some of my whiskey family and the whiskey maven, May. How's everybody doing tonight?
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome.
Doing good.
Why don't we
Doing
go
good.
around the room and you can say who you are and where you are.
Well,
Anybody
I'm
can
Jay.
start.
Sorry, guys.
I'm in Atlanta, Georgia. Good to be with you all tonight. Hope everybody's
Nice to have
safe and
you,
healthy.
Nice
Yes,
to see you,
indeedy.
Jay.
Hi, Jay.
Hello, Jay. I'm Matt. I'm from the UK. I'm the brand ambassador for Uncle Nearest in the UK, and I'm in my living room and in London.
Woo woo, London town. And our special guest.
Guys, I'm having a little bit of lag.
Yeah, I can see you're lagging a little bit.
I'm so sorry. So just bear with us while we try to fix it. But as Sailor was saying, we have a very special guest with us, Rachel Macalisang. Rachel is a WSET Advanced Certified Sommelier. She is a French wine specialist, a Spanish wine educator, and a sake professional. So needless to say, this woman has an incredible palate. Rachel, welcome to VIP Happy Hour.
Thank you so much, May, and thank you to everyone for having me today. I'm in my living room as well, here in Los Angeles. So thanks again for having me.
We're so happy to have you.
It.
This is going to be
really,
so
really
fun.
happy.
Really looking forward to it. So,
absolutely. So
May I just real quick before we get started, I'm going to go ahead and post the tasting chart that you asked me to for everyone in the room as a helpful guide to follow along tonight, and the WSET tasting grid as well. So I'm posting that for all of our attendees at the moment before we get started.
Awesome. So what we're going to do today is we thought it'd be really fun to do a first impression tasting with Rachel. Rachel has not had the chance to experience Uncle Nearest 1884 or 1856 before, and we thought it'd be really great to do a whiskey tasting from a sommelier perspective. So for those of you who are following along with us at home, this is a great time to go grab your bottles of Uncle Nearest, a tasting glass, and you can also refer to the tasting guides that Sailor just posted for us. So with that being said, are we like ready to crack open some bottles?
I think so. What do you guys think?
So.
I think so.
I'm always ready to crack open bottles.
Totally into that. It's Friday night.
Yes.
So. Yeah.
All right.
Awesome. So Rachel's going to start with Uncle Nearest 1884 because, of course, we start with a lower proof when we taste and then we proof up. For those of you who are following us at home, 1884 is our small batch release. It's a blend of 30 whiskeys, with the youngest whiskey being 7 years old. What's really special about this expression is it's curated by Nearest's great-great-granddaughter, Victoria B. Butler. Her signature is embossed on the back of the bottle, and she curates a blend from barrels that are hand-selected by our co-owners, Fawn and Keith Weaver. So Rachel is gonna pour some 1884. So Rachel, I'll let you take it from here.
Great. So what a beautiful color. Are we supposed to go through our tasting grid, or?
You know what? I think you're actually a living tasting grid.
Yeah, so. Exactly. I think you can wing it.
From you, but I think this woman absolutely can.
Well, how fun. So the whiskey is clear. Obviously, it's not hazy, but it seems to be a bit, I would say, lemon gold in color. Intensity is, I would say, medium or medium minus. On the nose, it's clean. I feel that it's maybe, intensity is probably like medium to pronounced. Beautiful aromas of, sorry, I'm just looking at the tasting grid. This is so cool.
Yeah, so actually, Rich, I think this is a great time to talk about how important it is to nose spirits and also wine, right? So it's like, first, what we do is we look at color, right? Because color gives us a lot of information. And for whiskey, color tends to indicate complexity and also age, right? So for us, for 1884, it's definitely a more light amber color. And when we nose whiskey, because whiskey tends to be much higher proof than wine, depending on how high the proof is of the whiskey, we'll bring it up to our nose and pull it back gently. We don't necessarily put our nose in the glass necessarily. And then sometimes one nostril, of course, could be stronger. So sometimes I'll roll it, in between. And when we taste whiskey, we tend to breathe, also keep our mouth parted, and inhale and breathe out through our nose and mouth so that we can bypass our sinuses. What is the standard ABV for wine, Rachel?
So the standard ABV is anywhere from about 10% to 15%.
Right, absolutely. And what we're tasting here is, a 93 proof, so that's a whole other level right now.
Exactly.
So curious, what are you getting on the nose, Rachel?
I'm getting some beautiful aromas of sort of like a peach, maybe like a golden apple. There's a little bit of more citrus. There's spices like cinnamon and clove, maybe nutmeg.
Let me say real fast, the fact that you said peach, I got to give a shout out because I'm in Atlanta. So good job on that. Way to get the two plug in there. Appreciate that. All my ATLians checking us out. Georgia Peaches, thank you.
Yeah, I think this is for me, this is a big like summer fruit, stone fruit. I get all that stuff in there. Apricot. I think I get apricot more than peach, but it's very
Rachel,
similar.
how in your training, how long would you spend nosing a wine or a spirit or anything before you actually tasted it?
So what we try to do is we try to take 3 inhales, but then after that you sort of have to just go for it. So it's literally like a 10-second process, and then you're analyzing the wine. So it's nothing that, I think if it's not a testing situation, obviously we can spend days or evenings enjoying a glass of whiskey or enjoying a bottle of wine. But for our purposes, when we're testing, it's really kind of like rapid fire. So every wine, we're having to analyze it in 4 minutes or less. So the nose, we're trying to quantify the nose in less than a minute, then onto the palate a minute, and then, judging.
Amazing.
Our initial final conclusions.
That's brilliant. I mean, the quicker I can get to drinking, the better. So
Exactly. It is happy hour, isn't it?
That's it's brilliant.
Amazing.
So what do we need to, when you taste, do you go through like, top notes? I always say like top notes, mid palate, finish. Do you do it that way as well? Like kind of chop it up into segments of how you're experiencing it?
Yeah, so I love that you brought that up, Sailor, because I do the same. So when I smell a glass, I sometimes smell at the top, then at the bottom, then at the mid. But then when I'm going through my own tasting grid, I have a little acronym called FEWS. One of my mentors taught to me, so FEWS. So don't get confused, but FEWS stands for fruit, earth, wood, and then spices. So it's something that's a very,
like that.
That's great.
yes, easy acronym to have in your brain when you're assessing wine. And obviously spirits is much different, but it's something that, F can also stand for flowers. So oftentimes we're smelling or detecting floral in both, wines and spirits. So it's something that you can use as well.
I love that.
Is that the sort of order you pick them up with your nose? Do you usually pick up the florals first and then?
Well, I think it's sort of a sensory overload for all of us. So just
Right.
to have that organized in my brain so that, we can quickly say, okay, what are the fruits? What are the earth components? What are the wood components, if any? What are the spice components, if any? So it's just a very easy way to organize, when you're when you're under the gun and having to assess a wine so quickly. How do you guys do it? You have to show
Rachel.
me.
Oh God, it's for me. It's I sort of do it. I sort of do it the same way that Sailor did. I like smelling the spirit, and I'll sit there and warm it, and I'll go through what I can pick up, sort of readying my palate, and then I'll wet my lips, and then drink it. But I've only just started down my sort of the WSET sort of path, and so having a formal guide and trying to remember and remind myself that the more you can standardize it, the better, because you can relay that information to other people.
Yes.
It's difficult for me because I'm very, very much used to it being a very social thing and getting in there as quickly as you can and then discussing it rather than sitting with it yourself and moving on from there.
Yeah, I learned a couple different ways of tasting. I did some sommelier training in France in the 90s and then realized it was not where I wanted to go. It was got a little too intense. But for spirits, I feel like I do something totally different. What I don't know, maybe it's what I'm looking for. Maybe it's because there's more similarities in whiskey than there is in your wine varietals. So I feel like you've got to get deeper into there and it's more intricate maybe, so I do too. I just spend a lot of time nosing spirits because I feel like there's so much information in the nose. And I really I was taught by some of the greats in whiskey that you smile when you nose and you are venting, but it's nice to smile because it's happy too, and to dig your nose in there and breathe down.
I thought we were smiling when we nose because that's when people take photos of you.
Well, that too, of course.
Nice.
But then I also organize it like, okay, what's coating my tongue, and then what's the finish, and then the Kentucky smack, which now we call it the Tennessee smack. When you're breaking open those little your little oil beads of flavor, what are you getting there? And then like the warmth level, which is different than wine. I feel like we have to make this up in whiskey because it's not, it's not as laid out as it is for wine.
I think this is going to be very interesting from the standpoint of us talking about this. Like you see like a workout video, you got high intensity, you got medium, and you got low. So I'm gonna come here and just keep the common denominator, just be chillers around the low part, because when I taste whiskey, I either like it or I don't like it. I either like whether with the heat, or I taste the sweetness, or it being a little bit more more dry or more hot in regards to the barrel, stuff like that. So I try to taste and see if I can taste some things like that, but my palate I don't think is as sophisticated. But I've been drinking bourbon all my daggone life. So grew up drinking Kentucky bourbon, and now I'm a Tennessee whiskey drinking guy, and not just because I work with Uncle Nearest, but because it's some really, really good whiskey. So I'm gonna try my best to stay up with you all when you're all talking all the good stuff. But for everyone else who's out there watching, I'm probably part of the 50% is like, what in the world? But I've heard this. We've been in the industry for like over 15 years, so I mean I know all the good stuff. And so, but I really enjoyed just sitting here talking and listening to you all, kind of explain it a little bit more and give me some tasting notes, because I'm learning too. So this is extremely helpful for me. But at the meantime, I'm just going to hear family relief.
I always feel like
Rachel,
I'm learning as well.
Rachel, let me ask. Sorry, can you guys hear me?
We can
Yes.
Now. Okay, sorry guys if I'm interrupting. It's just because I have a lag.
Yeah, you've got
it's not because I'm a rude. It's not because I'm a rude New Yorker that's like only on the weekends. So it's not right now. So Rachel, you know, for our viewers who are watching, like, what advice do you have for people to develop their palate and have more senses of reference in terms of like smell and taste?
For me, I think it's practice. What I love to do is I love our local farmers markets, or even, you know, when you're in the market, whether you're just grocery shopping, it's really easy to pick up a grapefruit and smell it and say, okay, these are the aromas that grapefruit smell like. So that you can very easily catalog that in your brain. And I think, you know, even as children, we naturally have bookmarked these experiences. So things like bubble gum, you know, when I chew bubble gum, it reminds me of a wine called Albarino. And or if I'm in the ocean, swimming in the ocean, and I get hit by a wave, it actually reminds me of the saltiness of a Chablis. So it's just really integrating all of your experiences. And it, you know, what I love about our industry is that, you know, we're very much in tune with our senses, whether it's sight or smell or taste. I think everyone in our industry is very connected to that part of ourselves. Would you agree?
100%.
Totally.
Oh yeah.
Totally.
Oh,
And especially in the industry we're in as well, with cocktails and things like that, you're also drinking with your eyes first.
Absolutely.
oh yeah.
Like
All about
outrageous
presentation.
garnishes.
Fancy glassware.
No, gotta love a glass.
Setting things
setting
on
your
fire.
drink, fire.
Yes, May. Yes.
Fire. Fire is
Fire.
always good.
You know what's the best is when I would try to bartend, and of course I have long hair, and it was like I would just hope that I wouldn't set my whole hair on fire and like go up in flames
Wow.
in the bar. So I don't do that anymore.
Or eyebrows.
It's really interesting that you're talking about going to farmers markets and picking up fruits and stuff like that, because I thought what you were going to say was you sit at home and you intensely study, but it's a lot more fun and free, that you're just trying to experience as many different fruits and different smells and tastes as you possibly can.
Yes, I think it's within all of us. So I don't really think that it's something that is innate in somebody to have an extra sense of smell or whatever it is. I think it's innate in all of us, and I think we've developed these tastes and these smells even from a young age. So it's just about having that vocabulary to go back to, and just reliving that side of ourselves.
I think it's great that you bring it up, because it's encouraging us to savor, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like the next time you have, a kiwi, right? Like actually get a sense of like looking at the color, smelling it, seeing how it feels, in your mouth, like all of the flavors that you can get from it. Because I think for a lot of us, it's like we're not very mindful, when we are eating. And I think it's a great way of just saying that we all have this ability, because it's just our senses. It's just whether or not we're taking the time to pay attention and to be able to, commit it to a memory and have a reference point for us to be able to draw from, while we're doing tastings now.
Yeah, I completely agree.
For sure. So before we move on and move forward, because we have two really great questions from our guests. And so I want to end with answering those questions, but it's something that we can all think about now. So Candace says, similar to wine, are there foods that you would recommend to pair with this whiskey, or even cigars? And of course the answer is absolutely yes. So we can, I would love to hear your thoughts, Rachel, what would come to mind right away. And then also we can end with TJ's asking, if we're looking for a good wine from Trader Joe's or Total Wine or whatever while we're in quarantine, do you have any recommendations of wine that might be accessible anywhere in the country that's, priced well, because maybe we're not getting, an income or all of our income right now, but we want to have a nice wine? I think would be really helpful recommendation also.
Amazing. Yeah, something really, really nice and versatile as well would be great, because Yeah, I'll stock up on that.
Oh my God. So, so having had the 1884, just off the top of your head, Rachel, what would you say, here would be my recommendation for a food pairing?
Honestly, this really reminds me of the summertime. So I could imagine a beautiful salad with apricots and peaches, maybe some, other berries thrown in. But I just feel that it's so beautifully light and elegant that it can actually go with a salad or even a light cheese. I think that those are great possibilities. What do you classically pair with this?
I think
I would
go ahead, May.
so sorry guys with my lag.
No, go ahead.
I actually love this with creme brulee. So if I'm having dessert and having a creme brulee, like I would love to have a dram of 1884 to complement it.
And I was going to mention too. I had a really good friend of mine at a restaurant. My chef over there, Cedric. He did a poached peaches with Uncle Nearest 1884, and did a peach cobbler with a whiskey ice cream. It was bananas.
Oh,
I mean,
yum.
not to put all too many fruits in there, but it was really, really good and really delicious. And I mean, it's sold like hotcakes. And so a really, really good peach cobbler, I'm thinking this would be like killer with it for sure. I know I'm plugging a whole lot of stuff with peaches with ATL. Maybe I don't know.
Well, it's about to be peach season soon, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, exactly too. So this is good to remember this with some great cocktails going into quarantine and all this good stuff, and going to spring and summer. So definitely pull out the 1884 and get that going.
Well, you can definitely see how our entire team's got a sweet tooth. Rachel recommends a salad, and we're on creme brulee, peach cobbler.
I was going to go the fish route, so I am not with you guys on, I do not have a sweet tooth. But I'm so glad, Rachel, that you said that, because I feel like this is such a delicate whiskey. So I feel like, oh, maybe I do know something. That's good. That makes me... that makes me feel good. But I think this is very, very feminine and delicate and so nuanced and bright. So a same salad, a white fish would be really nice. And it does, I put together a cheese board for whiskey dinner, and it goes, so beautiful with like nice, delicate cheeses. You don't want anything sharp to take it over, but that's exactly what I would do with it. So it's good to hear from an expert.
Rachel, would you do a manchego?
Yes, I absolutely. Manchego, Briat Savrine, I am there. Take me there.
Mm-hmm.
Rachel, I'm curious to find out too what you think. I mean, we're talking about pairing with food, but I'm curious to find out like really what you thought about the 1884 itself. Like, are you really a big serious person, and do you drink whiskey like that? And what's your really opinion on the 1884? How you feel about it?
I've been in suspense this whole time, just staring at these beautiful bottles, not able to open them. And now that I've
Torture.
I'm so impressed. It's so beautiful, and it's just so it's light, and I feel like it's something that I can drink. I would love to drink, on a regular basis. So what a beautiful expression of 1884.
Well, you happen to be friends with Uncle Nearest brand ambassador, so I think you're in good shape.
You heard it here, folks. Drink it all the time, every day, on the regular.
Rachel, I'm so excited to actually have you crack open 1856.
Sure.
So 1856, for our viewers at home who are following along with us, this is our award-winning 100 proof whiskey. It is a blend of 8 to 14-year-old whiskey. All of our whiskeys, actually, their expressions are named after historically significant years in Nearest's story. So 1856 is the year that we believe that Nearest perfected the process of mellowing distilled whiskey over sugar maple charcoal, also known as Lincoln County. And 1884 is the year that we believe is the last year that Nearest was making whiskey and putting it in barrels. So this is 1856, guys.
I'm definitely going to have to insist we go back to that wine question after this.
We will. We definitely will.
Matthew Neal is determined.
I need to up my wine game.
He needs his isolation chamber well stocked. Well,
I've got the spirits. I just need the wine.
Wants to impress the ladies with his wine knowledge.
That's exactly what it's about.
I know. I'm no dummy.
I can't have a name like Posh Matt and not be breaking out the wine.
Yes. Where's your ascot as well?
Good point. Good point.
Are you making Posh Matt like shoot out high proof whiskey through his
Yes.
Oh, jeez.
nostrils? Because that's
Here to help.
not a nice thing to do, Sarah. Posh Matt is really nosing the whiskey now. He's really nosing it.
Oh, that's cleared my senses. That's. Oh.
Okay. We're gonna focus now. Rachel, what are you getting for the color for 1856?
Okay, so the color is really quite similar, but it's definitely darker, deeper, but still clear, no haze there. I would say it's medium plus in intensity. The color is more towards gold amber, and yeah, it's beautiful. It sparkles like gold.
It does.
Turn water into gold, baby.
It looks
That's
like
it.
honey. It looks like liquid honey.
It does, yes.
Right?
Yeah, I love the color on this one. Get
Mhm.
most comments on the colors in
Yes.
this one at whiskey
Yeah.
shows.
Yeah, same.
That's so funny.
So are you guys
Nice little
familiar
plug.
with
I said to my wife, looks like honey. Trying to get in the brownie points when I can.
Bring me the
Anytime.
romance, gentlemen.
His
Bring me
wife,
the romance.
and I we were separated at birth, I think.
Oh Lord, yes.
Yes, we
Hallelujah.
were.
That's hilarious. Yeah. Ah, that's my go-to right there. 1856. I love you.
So this is such a difference in such a difference in proof level. And so this is my biggest question for you, Rachel. I am a super nerd about the glassware that I use. Like, I have a larger stemmed tulip, and I don't love this. I like it in a wide open glass. I was trying it tonight. I have to have it wider. But I also, when I am 95 and up, I have to add water to it for the initial taste, because I feel like I need to get that ethanol out, and I need to break open the oil beads so that I can get at that flavor until I get used to it, and then I feel like I don't need it. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I follow the lead of the winemaker, the distiller, because I know that everyone has their intricacies. So some people like to add water, some people don't like to add water. So I just follow the lead. And if you recommend we add water, then I will.
There's a whole thing about, how do I say this nicely, about drinking whiskey neat or not drinking whiskey neat, that it's kind of like measuring your private parts for some people.
Oh, God.
Which is just, but then I see them, I'm going to get into this because I have a bee in my bonnet about this. Then I see them like eating like a burrito and like smoking a cigar. And I'm like, well, no wonder, idiot, you can't taste anything. So, of course you're drinking a 120 proof whiskey neat and you're like, you're a P word if you don't drink it neat. You're a sissy if you add ice to it or water to it. I'm like,
God.
Shut up. You can't taste anything. That's my rant over.
I don't give a crap. I'm gonna drink 1856 on the rocks all day. That's what I love. I mean, me being a bartender, I'm gonna put in some cocktails and make it real sexy. But if I'm just really sipping it by myself, I'm gonna have it on the rocks. That's how I roll with 1856. Personally speaking.
With wine, is there the same sort of discussion about like temperature, or I certainly know there is glassware. There's a huge array of wine out there, but do people still have those same sort of discussions?
Absolutely, it's the same. I think, you know, glassware, temperature, I think we're all very particular about which stems we're using for which wines, and then if it's the proper temperature. Sometimes it's, you know, if a red wine is too warm, it's not actually showing properly, or if a white wine is too cold, it's very closed. So those are all great points for service.
So with this one, do you, and this is the question I get asked all the time if I'm out in the market, people ask me, well, what's the difference between the two? Are they similar? Are they completely different? What are your thoughts if you put them side by side now that you've tasted them both?
Well, just right off the bat, I think that I think they're both quite delicious. The 1884 to me is more clean. It's sort of more feminine, and this is the 1856 seems to be have more nuances, a little bit more complex and deeper. It's sort of like one of those wine or whiskeys that you have by the fire and you're, you know, in deep thought kind of thing.
I totally get that. I always say, for me,
Rachel and I were.
Go ahead, May.
Sorry. So Rachel and I were having a fun conversation beforehand, and I wanted to actually kind of open a conversation. So I asked Rachel, I said, Rachel, because she's a global wine specialist, I was like, if you could personify Spanish wine, Italian wine, French wine, and sake as a person, who would they be? So I would like to ask Rachel that, and then also ask Rachel, if 1884 could be a person and 1856 was also a human being, who would they be for you?
Oh, well, tough questions. So for wines, sometimes when I think about wine, and I think about Spanish wine, for example, I think about Antonio Banderas, because he has this sort of like machismo. He has a great range, but he's also balanced with some sensitivity. So that reminds me of the great wines of Rioja, even some of the white wines in Cava. That, you know, there's a lot of versatility there. So sometimes it's fun for me to personify things. For Italian wines, I think it evokes something like Giovanni Versace, for example, very flashy, very overdone. And then, you know, French wines for me sometimes remind me of Coco Chanel, because they're classic, they're elegant, there's an air of confidence there. So, you know, I think that whiskeys are very similar. It's very hard for me to quantify a name at the moment, but the 1856, like these both sort of remind me of like the 1856 sort of reminds me of a man, sort of like this mountain you want to climb, or, you know, a man with a deep dark voice that's
manly man,
so silky and
Rachel, I think you're writing a dating profile for 1856.
Quarantine is killing me too, girl. Just, Jeez. Oh man.
Oh my God.
That was good.
And for 1880, Rachel?
It's posh like Matt. 1884.
And 1884, I think, is definitely more sort of like James Bond, like debonair.
Ooh.
Yeah. It's amazing for me. I sort of having all the visuals for these whiskeys, and I used to have an image in my head of like different people for different whiskeys and different things. But ever since I met our head of operations, Sherry Moore, just can't get her face out of my mind when I'm drinking these whiskies. They just so personify her to me.
Nice.
I feel like our whiskeys are, so I always say, I agree with like the feminine, masculine, or I say like daytime, nighttime. I
Morning.
think, sure, morning. I think 1884 is since we are a women-run company, 1884 is the heart and the soul, because it's the delicate nature of our heart and soul, the women in the company. And then 1856 is our kick-ass, badass female strength that is literally the reason we are the fastest growing brand right now, because we are women run. And so that's kind of how I think about it in my head, rather than a specific person.
I've been kicking a lot of ass
Sailor,
lately. Sorry.
Sailor, I love that, because then it kind of reminds me of like Wonder Woman, and then like Wonder Woman's, Wonder Woman's daytime persona.
Yes, yeah. When she was, what was her name?
That's a great way of thinking of it.
I can't remember.
Oh no, but wasn't she like a goddess on a rainforest somewhere
Yeah,
where men were not allowed?
Well, originally, yes. But what was her name
I just
when?
remember Linda Carter. That's all I
Yeah,
remember,
Linda Carter. But her day job, I can't. Diane.
Oh, Diane. Yeah, her name was Diane. Was she a secretary?
Something like that.
Someone tell us.
Something awful.
If anyone's
Yeah,
watching,
if anybody knows,
this,
somebody Google it. I can't remember what. Like the Linda Carter's Clark Kent. What was her like Clark Kent?
On it.
That's a good one. I like that.
Do you find that wines have masculine and sort of separate into the masculine and the feminine and stuff like that?
I do, but sometimes I don't like to use the words masculine or feminine. Sometimes because I don't really want to pigeonhole it as being, or even ourselves as being certain characteristics, right? So yes, I think that certain wines definitely are softer, especially when we're talking about wines from old world versus wines in the new world. In general, old world wines tend to have that softness, lower alcohol, whereas new world wines, because they're in climates that are riper with more sunlight, they tend to be sort of bigger, more opulent.
Mm-hmm. I have a sake question as well.
Wonder Woman, by the way.
Like, we'll go back to the isolation wine, but I'd also love to know one isolation sake I should buy.
If you're in isolation, I would just look for a Daiginjo sake. Those are the ones that are most highly polished, and for me, a lot of them are so ethereal. And so if you're in isolation, I think that's a great style to find Daiginjo.
Daiginjo and highly polished. I'll remember that.
And also, you can make beautiful cocktails with sake and whiskey. It is probably my favorite type of cocktails to make, because it's so out of what people would expect. And so I've done a range of them in the past, and I love doing sake and whiskey cocktails. So that leads me to two questions. We're going to start wrapping it up a little bit. First of all, thank you, Patty Lee. She answered our question. According to Wikipedia, her name is Diana Prince. The fictional career of Diana Prince evolved over the years from original Army nurse to becoming a military intelligence officer, promoted to higher ranks, then later a civilian employee, businesswoman, astronaut, or staff member of the United Nations. Well, okay.
Multitasking. Go ahead, women. I see that.
Okay, there's that. Hell yeah. Okay, so we're going to end on two last questions. And so one of them is a wine question, one is a cocktail question. So for the cocktail question, we're going to have Jay end with a really good, easy to make at home recommendation for a quarantine cocktail. And then we will post on social media some more recipes, and we'll do some sake recipes. But Rachel, if you would give us the recommendations for maybe easily to access fine wines that are priced well, that are kind of like standard, that you think most people would enjoy for our guests tonight.
Are we talking about our Trader Joe's wines? Okay. So for Trader Joe's, please don't judge me. But honestly, I feel like the Trader Joe's wines are fantastic. The $2, or I guess they're $3 now, but they have a whole line of Trader Joe's wines. I think they're called Charles Shaw. But there are whites, there's reds, so Pinot Grigio, they have Sauvignon Blanc, Chardonnay, there's a Merlot, a Cab. And for $3, I think they're amazing value and just very accessible. So I think for an everyday drinking quarantine wines, you cannot go wrong with Trader Joe's wines.
Awesome. And so if you don't have a Trader Joe's and you have to go to Total Wine, something like that, one of these major liquor stores, what do you think most people could find on the shelf that you would recommend?
I think there's so much to choose from at Total Wine. My classic go-to is champagne. So I love getting a bottle of champagne. I think it's easy drinking. It pairs with a wide range of foods. So you can have it with appetizers. You can even have it with your burger if you wanted to. So I think champagne for me is an easy go-to.
Nice. Awesome.
Thank you, Rachel. So I would be remiss to also not let our viewers know that if you're at Trader Joe's and getting a bottle of Charles Shaw, you should also pick up a bottle of Uncle Nearest 1856 as well.
Of course.
Get your whiskey and wine on. Thank you,
job,
Rachel, so much for having us. For those of you who would like to keep in touch and ask Rachel some questions, she's also an incredible freelance writer. She writes for the Somm Journal. Sailor has a link to her LinkedIn and also her Instagram.
Yes, which I just posted. And then let's end with Jay giving a cocktail recommendation. And then what we'll do is, since we got the question about cigar pairings, which is a really great question, we're going to start doing like little bonus segments.
A lot of stuff.
Yes. Yeah. We've gotten a lot of questions about that. So we will do a bonus segment specifically on some cigar pairings with 1884 and 1856. And we'll get some expert opinions on cigars that are easy to find and well priced. And so look for that later. And then, Jay, if you would go through a cocktail.
I know, so going on, high intensity, medium, and low, I'm going to do 3 of them real fast. So high intensity, for myself, being a bartender for a while, I love a great Boulevardier. Even though it's springtime, a lot of times it's more so of a fall and winter drink. I don't give a crap. I'm going to drink it all the time. So Boulevardier is pretty much just doing, I went blank real fast, but doing Campari. Sometimes I'll do an Aperol in there with me because I don't want it as bitter. I have a little bit more of a sweet tooth, but doing Aperol, sweet vermouth, and whiskey. So, of course, Uncle Nearest in there, and I'm going to put 1856 in there, shake a few little orange bitters, and I'm good to go. And that'll be delicious on the rocks, of course. So stir that and put it on the rocks, and you're good to go. In the middle, I will put just do an old-fashioned. So depending on what you have in your bar, old-fashioned, just simple and plain. You doing sugar, like at my restaurant where we do the sugar cubes, but essentially you can do it with sugar water, which is pretty much sugar, water, and boil that down, and then you have simple syrup. And so just do a little bit of, maybe like a half ounce, depending on your sweetness profile, a half ounce to an ounce maybe, but do 2 ounces or 2.5 ounces of whiskey. Do that, and then whether you want to do the modern way is with the orange and cherry, or the old-fashioned way, or the pre-prohibition way would be to do it with just simple syrup, bitters, and whiskey. So make sure you have some bitters. Make sure you have some Angostura bitters is my first go-to for that. Then you bring it down. Something traditional you may have in the house or not. I love a great whiskey sour. And I do it the traditional way of doing the whiskey sour, doing, of course, Uncle Nearest, doing simple syrup, lemon juice, and then an egg white. I know people are like, holy crap, egg white. But, those of us who are bartending in the game for real, egg white, it pretty much makes it like a meringue. Gives it frothiness, gives it some great texture. It goes down so smooth. I put so many people on with doing the egg white. They freaked out at first, and once they drank it, they were like, holy crap, I'm not drinking any other type of sour any other way other than the traditional way. So those would be my 3: Boulevardier, Old Fashioned, and a whiskey sour, and just go from there. You can always look online and check us out We can put stuff up there, but also too, you just go on and just Google it and find out what the recipes are and see what the heck you got in your refrigerator and go for broke.
Also, guys, since you joined us for this, if you would like us to send you a copy of a beautiful cocktail calendar that we released this year that has a ton of recipes, and one of them is one of Jay's recipes, and it has the methodology and help you get a picture of it and everything, please just go ahead and if you would like to, you can send me an email. That's the calendar right there. I'm sailor@unclenearest.com, and just give me your address and we'll go ahead and send you a calendar and maybe some goodies in there as well, so you can make cocktails at home. We also every Thursday have our cocktail club, and last night, and I just posted this in the chat, our team did the old fashioned and did a couple different versions of it and talked about old fashions. So that's a lot of information there for you guys on cocktails. And please do visit Rachel. She is at Wine Badass on Instagram.
Good tag.
And I love it. And I'm going to spell her name. I'm going to go ahead and spell her name for you because we do put this as audio only on a podcast, so you can find her online and LinkedIn. So she is Rachel, and then Macalisang. And I can tell you, after attempting to go through some levels of being a sommelier, it is not easy. It is very difficult. So hats off to Rachel. And I'm so glad that you got to taste these. And it was so fun having you.
What a treat. Thank you, everyone. These are so delicious. And I can't say so many, these are amazing. I want to drink all of it.
Well, let's do that.
Thank
you.
Thank you.
This was awesome.
Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us.
And May, do we know what we're doing next Friday's happy hour?
So I might have a little something up my sleeve for our viewers for next week. I think we might be inviting one of my dear friends who is the head pastry of Chateau Marmont to teach us how to make Uncle Nearest maple glazed donuts. You do not need to do
Nice.
Okay,
he's
so
actually working on the recipe right now.
Okay.
I want to share something that's really for us to do while we're in quarantine. So I think you guys might want to learn how to make some delicious Uncle Nearest glazed donuts and drink some whiskey with us.
So we will definitely post ahead of time what you will need for it, right? And then these videos stay on our Facebook page as well, so that you can go back to it and reference it at any time.
Amazing.
Awesome.
The Krispy Kreme crackhead, I'm very much so looking forward to that.
This is all we need in quarantine is, oh boy. Well, thanks everyone so much for being with us tonight. And we will just say cheers to whiskey and wine tonight.
Cheers to whiskey and wine.
Cheers.
They're good friends. And cheers to Rachel.
Thanks, Rachel.
Thank you.
You were awesome.
Cheers.
Thank you, Rachel.